From a distance, it seems almost unreal, spires twisting upward as if the stone itself is still in motion. Step closer and the details multiply. Creatures, symbols, stories carved into every surface. It overwhelms, it invites, it demands attention. It's been under construction for over a century and people still come from every corner of the world. This is Sagrada Familia. And the question hangs in the air. After all these years, all this wonder, is it worth the journey?
With more than 4.5 million visitors per year, the Sagrada Familia is the most visited monument here in Spain. And in today's video, we are going to figure out if it's actually worth the hype to enter it or not. But before entering the Sagrada Familia, I want to walk you a little bit through the history of this basilica that was designed by one of the most genius architects of modern times, Antoni Gaudí. But who was Antoni Gaudí? And why is the Sagrada Familia still not finished 99 years after his death? What is really interesting to mention is that Antoni Gaudí wasn't the first architect who started the Sagrada Familia, and neither was it his idea. The idea came from Josep Maria Bocabella, who wanted to build a church that was completely financed through donations. He wanted to dedicate it to the Holy Family and promote family values. So the first architect who started to build the Sagrada Familia in 1882 was Francisco de Paula de Villar. But pretty soon, differences arose between Bocabella and Villar. While Villar wanted to build the church in a Gothic style, way more conventional than what we see today, Bocabella had other things in mind. Villar resigned in 1882, and at only 31 years old, Antoni Gaudí took over this massive project and redesigned the whole construction.
Antoni Gaudí was a Catalan architect that designed various famous places in Barcelona. Gaudí dedicated a big part of his life to this project, which started when he was only 31 years old, and he kept working on it until his death in 1926, when he was hit by a tram. In his last months, he even lived in the Sagrada Familia, and after his death, they placed his tomb inside of the crypt. Until today, his project is still not finished, and Gaudí knew very well he would never see it finished. Yet he began anyway. Gaudí ensured that there would be many drawings and models that would resemble his vision so that after he died, someone would be able to finish this masterpiece.
Antoni Gaudí used a very unique technique in all of his buildings. He built various ones, most of them being here in Barcelona, and the Sagrada Familia is probably his most famous piece. His style was unique. He wanted to represent nature, and all of his buildings are rather smooth with round edges. The Sagrada Familia, for example, has a shape of a triangle. However, you won't be able to see that at first glance because of all of these rounded curves in the Sagrada Familia. However, due to its shape, the Sagrada Familia has 3 facades. Each of them represents a specific time in the life of Jesus Christ. This one here behind me, for example, is the Nativity facade. It represents the celebration of the birth of Jesus Christ. What you can see here behind me is that there are basically 3 arches here on this facade. Each arch represents one member of the Holy Family. By the way, Holy Family in Spanish is Sagrada Familia. So now you also know where the name of this basilica comes from. The left arch here is dedicated to Saint Joseph, while the right one is dedicated to the Virgin Maria, and the one here in the center is dedicated to Jesus Christ. And even though the Sagrada Familia is not yet finished, we can already see many details here in the facades. Each detail has a story to tell. Nothing here is coincidence. On top of the portal, we can see the birth scene of Jesus Christ. We can see Joseph, Jesus and Mary, and at their sides an ox and a donkey. It is the center of the facade, and this scene also gave the facade its name. On the left side we can see the 3 magi who are bringing gifts, and up there is also the star that guided them. And all these holes that you can see here in the towers, they also have a purpose. Gaudí saw the Sagrada Familia as a huge organ. The holes are meant to distribute the sound of the bells of the towers so that you can hear them all over the city. The top of the towers have typical mosaics created by Gaudí. He used this technique in various architectures he designed, and it is kind of his signature style. Before we continue to the opposite side of the Sagrada Familia to have a look at the next facade, you might notice that there are different colors here on the right side and on the left side. That is because the center part here of the facade is the oldest part of the Sagrada Familia. It was also the only part that Antoni Gaudí managed to finish himself before he died. This here is the Passion facade, and it is probably the most dramatic facade as it represents the death of Jesus Christ. I believe it is very interesting to see the huge difference between this facade and the one we saw before. As you can see, this one has less details and it is rather harsh and sharp. The design was meant to be like that. Gaudí wanted this facade to be bare and hard, as if made of bones. And you can see the structure there behind me, the large columns that kind of seem to be like tense muscles, and the smaller columns above it, they kind of resemble a rib cage. On the left, we can see the scene that represents the Last Supper. And down there is a dog that represents loyalty. Just a little bit further on the right side, we can see Judas kissing Jesus, a sign of betrayal. In the center of the Passion facade, we can see Jesus Christ on the cross. And just a bit further on top, there is a golden stage here that stands out. This is Jesus Christ rising up to heaven. Before we enter the Sagrada Familia now, I want to show you the last facade that is actually far from being finished yet. This here is the third and last facade. It is the Glory facade, and as you can't see that much yet, it is not finished at all. This is supposed to be the main entrance of the Sagrada Familia. It is facing the sea as Gaudí wanted it to be. But at the time the Sagrada Familia was planned, there was less traffic, there were no cars, there weren't buildings on this side here. So nowadays there's a huge problem. First of all, it is planned to build like a structure that is going to cross the road here. But then, as you can see, there are buildings here. So the neighbors here in the area are actually very worried about what is going to happen to their homes. Once completed, the Sagrada Familia will have 18 towers in total. The one in the center will be dedicated to Jesus Christ, and it will be the highest tower. The second highest tower is the one that has the star on top of it. It is on the apse of the basilica, and it is dedicated to Virgin Mary. At its completion, the Sagrada Familia will be the highest building in Barcelona, and with 172 meters, it will also be the highest religious building in Europe. However, it was very important to Gaudí that the Sagrada Familia would not suppress Montjuïc, which is a hill that is located here in the city. He said that something man-made should never be higher than something that was made by God. I could go on and on telling you more stories about the towers and the details of the Sagrada Familia. However, I believe it is now time to enter it, because I also don't want to overwhelm you with all the information. To enter the Sagrada Familia, you must book your tickets in advance, and I do recommend you to do this at least 1 week in advance, because their slots sell out quickly and you will get a specific time slot assigned. If you miss the time slot, you also miss your chance to enter the Sagrada Familia. So if you want to enter it, make sure to check out the link in the description below to book your tickets in advance and experience the beautiful and stunning inside of this basilica as well. Wow, this is insane. This is so beautiful. I feel tiny in here. It is huge. The walls are so tall. And I love the light that shines through the glasses. This really is a piece of art. It's absolutely stunning. You can see the columns here in the center of the basilica, and they even have a purpose. First of all, as mentioned before, Gaudí always tried to incorporate nature in his architecture. And these columns here, they look kind of like trees. And that is on purpose. However, they also have a very important purpose because they actually hold the roof of the Sagrada Familia. So it's not just decoration, it is very important to have them.
The inside of the Sagrada Familia is very different from other cathedrals. There are hardly any statues or art in here. That is because it's all outside on the walls. This basilica lives from the space inside and the light that shines through the windows. In the center, there is a Jesus Christ on the cross. And look at the details. There are grapes up there standing for the Last Supper. Here we have the facade of glory. It's the one that we have seen from the outside, which is not finished yet. Here we can now see the door that shall be the main entrance once the basilica is finished. The Lord's Prayer is written in its center in Catalan, but around it the prayer has been translated into 50 different languages, a symbol that the Sagrada Familia was made for everyone.
Originally, it was planned to finish the Sagrada Familia by 2026, but especially the pandemic slowed down the construction tremendously. Nowadays, they only plan to finish the highest tower by 2026. There will still be a lot of details missing, and these details will take a lot of time. Now, is it worth the hype to visit the Sagrada Familia? It is up to you to decide. Let me know in the comment section below if you prefer to wait for the completion of the Sagrada Familia, or if you also would like to visit it right now already.
It overwhelms, it dazzles, it confounds. Every spire, every arch feels impossibly intricate, yet unfinished. A dream suspended between devotion and ambition. Visitors marvel, yet sometimes strain to grasp its scale, its contradictions. It is chaotic, human, divine, a place where wonder and unease coexist. To leave is to carry both awe and the quiet discomfort of realizing some things can never be fully understood, only experienced. And perhaps that is exactly why it matters. The Sagrada Familia is unfinished. It is alive and it inspires. Today, tomorrow, for generations yet to walk these halls.